Nirin Nay is a publication that was put out by the Biennale of Sydney to coincide with the 22nd Biennale, titled Nirin. And it really was a way to develop a publication that would arise out of the practices of artists in the Biennale, particularly those with writing, research, and text-based practices, and showcase these in a different way from the exhibition and the exhibition catalogue. Unlike a conventional reader, it wasn't just a desire to showcase kind of theoretical texts that would expand upon the concepts of the Biennale, but really to use the book as a different kind of space. And we worked with Stuart Geddes and Trent Walter, who tackled this idea of what a kind of artist book / reader / compilation could be out of something like a Biennale. And they really treated this project in a holistic way and treated it as an artist project in itself. So we also developed this book as a way of expanding upon the central theme of the exhibition, which is Nirin, meaning edge, a Wiradjuri word, to explore the many ways that artists, writers, and researchers attend to these lines of connection, to materials and spaces and relations in between and in transition. So edges and modes of relating explored within the book are between many different things, between people and non-human elements, materials, plants, animals, foods, places, and encompass intangible thresholds of time and spirit worlds. We believe that this dynamic work helps to thicken and make visible and complicate ideas of interconnectedness and relating, in many instances making a kind of moral case, or a creative kind of moral case, against the accelerated modes of connecting that exist through global networks and enable rampant extraction and exploitation of our world, and that often rely on disconnecting people from each other, as well as people to place, to their culture and to history. One of the most exciting pieces in the book by Joseph Williams and Jimmy Frank, who are members of the artist collective Tennant Creek Brio, speaks frankly about the many forms of dispossession faced by their community, but it ends with this hope of new creative forms of continuing culture and connecting to one another, and ends their piece saying, "We are holding it strong." As artist Tony Albert says in his conversation with Hetty Perkins, it's also not just about connecting, the connection already exists. It's about not disconnecting. So it's about keeping those modes of connection which already exist alive. Contributions such as those of Mayon Kiki's interview with an Ainu elder, Aiko Yamamoto, about the nearly disappearing kind of practice of Ainu tattooing called Sinuye, which was banned by the Japanese government, shows a kind of dynamic, creative way of re-enlivening these practices. Or Maria Teresa Alves's personal essay, which addresses the racism and reductive categories for Indigenous identity in Brazil, is another kind of mode of finding creative ways for artists to open up dialogues and trace lines of cultural connection that have almost disappeared but have survived through and despite the violent erasures and disruptions of colonialism. Alves asks, in respect of the communities which we no longer know and to which we belong to, how do we define ourselves? And this is a question that seems to be asked again and again, this sort of, how do we create these creative acts of definition when the definitions that have been provided are so reductive? And what kind of unfolds across this book, I think, is a description and creative modes of identity and community in complex ways that are not only creative acts of forming new ways of relating and belonging, but ways of kind of discovering these paths that have been erased. These are stories which often look back through history as well as forwards, often in non-linear ways, creating anachronic resonances and allowing histories and fictions to dance together, against reductive historical fictions and towards an idea of multivalent truth-telling. In artist Michael Rakowitz's piece, for instance, Letter to Leonard Cohen, which is typed on the late musician's typewriter, Rakowitz draws out numerous connections to relate to a fellow artist, arguing in support of the academic and cultural boycott of Israel. This dialogic mode never dissolves into relativism. Instead, Rakovits suggests a way of taking a stand from within the complexity between two opposing poles, to avoid what he calls the paralysis located in the middle. Here and in many pieces, the middle, the spaces in between, are so located because they belie not a simple middle ground of compromise, but their positions from within complexity and fluidity, resilient against the pernicious erasure and seductive simplicity of dominant narratives and modes of being. As Leuli Ashragi writes, in a piece that considers the way different languages enable or inhibit modes of relating, they write, in order to speak of indigenous pleasures, we must be able to literally immerse ourselves in fluid states, necessary to well-being, to sensuality, to fulfillment, to openness. Instead of avoidant or apolitical relativity, where positions just seem to dissolve into kind of nothingness across a network, these artists show modes of relating and connecting that open out towards differences between things without appropriating or dissolving these differences. In Jyota Mombacha's work of science fiction, a new human subjectivity is shown in a state of transformation and has a permeable boundary with the earth itself as it flees and resists the industrial military complex of system. In Mary Somby's work of erotic fiction, Cross-Continental Indigenous Lovers' Love, edges exist as negotiated contact points eliciting joy, healing, learning, and entanglement. What remains fascinating about so many of the works in this book, far too many to mention right now, is the way that they manage to take positions without attempting to reduce or define away complexity or uncertainty. There is value given to the connections that ground us through senses of place, identity, and history, while allowing for and acknowledging the porous boundaries between things. Standing within edges, we see a dense web of connections, openings and questions, which allow us to see the multiple from within the integrity of generous creative positions. So we hope you really take the time to look through these different positions, statements. Many are merely fragments, unfinished pieces, revisitations, and kind of can see how they together kind of build up this web of connections. And even though many different positions are kind of encountered, we do think that together they present a kind of way, different ways of viewing the world that are kind of against these sort of dominant modes that currently exist. So please enjoy. Thank you.